Ole Miss to me is such an interesting team in 2021 because I think they're going to be pretty good. But I feel like and we talked about this last week, there's a wide range, right? If the defense isn't any better, it could collapse, but I think the defense will be better. For you, what's the best case, worst case for the Rebels in 2021?
Yeah, I think, if you want to start out on the positive side of things, I think the best case is this is a team with a break or two, and probably more than just a break or two, several breaks, could push winning 10 games. Mm-hmm. On the flip side of that, amidst all the excitement and everything about the second year of Lane Kiffin, the return of Matt Corral, the offensive prowess that we know they have, is the fact that you can't lose sight. They play in the toughest division in the toughest conference of all college football. And, it's really a true statement to say on any given Saturday, anybody can beat anybody in that league for the most part. And in the West, I think that's certainly true. You go out there and you have a bad day, throw some interceptions against Arkansas, you may not win that game. And, so I think on the low side of things, I mean, this is a team I think that's definitely, a 6+ win team no matter what, because I think their schedule shapes up nicely. They draw Tennessee and Vanderbilt from the East. Yeah. Both of those should be very winnable games. And Mississippi State and Arkansas, while we don't know fully what to expect from each of them this year, both of them look like they could be beat down again. So with that said, I think your win range between 6 and 10. And, a lot's going to depend on, I think the key games for Ole Miss in reaching, the upward platitude there is going to be what they do against LSU and Auburn. So, a lot of intrigue around this team. And as you said, look, the offense, people generally assume it's a given they're going to be as productive as they were last year. The question is, can that defense take some steps forward and they be able to win some games that they were close in last year, but no cigar?
Let's talk about the offense. One more question. Is the best kept secret in college football that the fact that Ole Miss led the SEC in rushing last year?
That's kind of funny because, everybody looks at Ole Miss as a typical spread type offense, and it's not. It's not. Now Lane and Jeff Lebby are going to spread you out, and they're going to create mismatches where they can. But, Lane Kiffin's offense, don't mistake it for a system. When Phil Longo was calling the plays in Oxford, that was a system, okay? It really didn't matter where your best personnel was on the field offensively. You were going to take what the defense gave you, so to speak, which in a lot of times that means your best players aren't always touching the football. I think a good example of that was Dawson Knox at the tight end position at Ole Miss, where he was stuck playing in a systemic type offense. Look, Lane Kiffin, it's not a system, okay? He's strategizing. He's looking out there on that field, and he's going to get the ball in the hands of his best playmakers. He talks about analytics a lot, but it's hard to write a book on what Lane Kiffin's offense is because he has more of a pro mentality, more of a we're not going to just go out there and try to take what you give us. We're going to go out there and line it up, and we're going to attack you where you're vulnerable. And I think that's kind of the big difference. So, anybody looking at this team going, "Oh, this is a pass-happy West Coast style offense," you're sadly mistaken. You're missing half the picture there.
And it doesn't even seem like this year Ole Miss could run the ball even more because that seems to me that's where their best playmakers are, with Ely, with Connor, and with Parrish. Those are three guys. I don't know if you can put all three of them on the field at the same time, but I would be definitely finding ways to get two of them out there at the same time and create some mismatches.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see that because I think if they do what they want to do, if they're able to do what they want to do, I think you're going to see Jerrion Ely lined up in the slot a whole lot more than you've ever seen in the past. I think that's one of the cards they're holding that everybody's asking, hey, who's going to replace Elijah Moore's production? I think you're going to see Jerrion Ely, not that he won't play a lot of running back, but I think you're going to see him in that slot a good bit this fall.
I mean, that would be an interesting, and a guy you talk about that can create problems for players out in space is Jerrion Ealy. That's a defensive coordinator's worst nightmare.
Yeah, and I spent a little time with Ealy on Saturday, and he was kind of telling me that, and then he's embracing it. He said, "Look, I'm just a playmaker. Wherever they put me, I'm going to make plays. So I'm fine. If they line me up at running back, they line me up in the slot. Just give me the ball."
Well, we can't talk about Ole Miss and not mention that defense because, it's one of those things where, David, I've been saying for like the last 4 or 5 years, well, they can't be any worse, and then they find a way to be worse defensively the next season. Why is this year going to be different for Ole Miss?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've been so burned by saying exactly what you said. They can't be any worse for so long now that I'm going to be real careful what I say because there's still some concern on that defensive side of the ball. And for me, seeing is going to be believing. Yes, they look better in our limited viewing in the spring. They played with more enthusiasm. They were more of a swarming defense. They look more comfortable in their own skin out there. You've got some key additions. Firstly, they probably they did play all year, all the way till the end, without the guy who's probably their most talented defender, and that's Otis Reese. So you're going to have him out there. According to 247's rankings, they signed the number 1 and number 2 JUCO defensive tackles in the country in Isaiah Ayton and Jamon Gordon. So you expect those guys to be able to make a big difference. The linebacker transfer from Maryland, Chance Campbell, he's a guy that they're going to be depending on. Then you've got some old hats coming back, like Sam Williams on that defensive line, Momo Sanogo, guys like that give them a little bit of a swagger, I think, from an experience standpoint. But there's no Jaquez Jones on that defense anymore, who led them in tackles last year. He hit the transfer portal. He's now at Kentucky. They lost a guy we found out last week, Brandon Mack, who was going to play heavily in that outside linebacker DN rotation. He's out with a season-ending injury. Lost some depth on the defensive line with D-tackle Sincere David. He's out with a season-ending injury. So, those little things don't help. But, I understand. Everybody's thought is, well, they can't be any worse than they were. And, if they're any better, they're going to put more victories in the win column. And I would agree with that premise, but once again, seeing is believing. Got to see those guys. Got to see what this new addition looks like before I'm going to fully buy into that defense being any better than what we've grown accustomed to the last half decade or so.
And the good news for Ole Miss is you don't need them to be like the Nebraska Black Shirts or the Alabama from the night. If they could be in the top 60. That's going to be good enough to probably easily win 8 or 9 games for the Rebels.
Yeah, if those guys are the 9th best defense in the SEC, I could see them winning 10 games. They just need a little bit of improvement there. But we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, I'm not going to hang myself out there. I'm not going to walk out on that thin limb this early in the preseason and guarantee they're going to be any better. They should be better. I guess we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, let's watch the Louisville game together, and then I'll give you a decision after that. I think that feels pretty fair.
Yeah,
that game heading over to Atlanta, supposed to be a full crowd. Everything's back to normal for the most part. How many Rebel fans do you think are making the trip over to Georgia for that one?
That's a great question. It's on a Monday night, and of course everybody's got to get up and go to work the next morning. So. That's always a factor. But there's a lot of excitement around this football team. So, I could see Ole Miss bringing legitimately 25,000 to that game, maybe even 30.
That should be a really we've been talking about that, and, we got to meet with the executive director of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl while we were at Media Days, and they are incredibly excited about that matchup. And I think it's going to be a fun football game. Louisville is a fun team. They run a little bit of an unconventional offense. I think it'll be a good test for Ole Miss, and if they can keep that offense under wraps, that'll bode well for them headed into SEC play. So, David Johnson,
no
always
doubt.
a pleasure, man. We'll definitely have to have you back on soon, especially when it's only me in here, man. I don't know enough about Ole Miss to come off as the expert. I got to get you on for that. Thanks so much, man.